Hello, everyone. Again, we're back on the Horizon Europe topic today. We'll be discussing not only about Horizon Europe, but overall European startup ecosystem. Today, we have a special guest, Sanyu Karani from Funding Box, which is very renowned Horizon Europe operator who can give us some insights about the European ecosystem, what's going on over there, and where we're heading to. So now we're going to start with our slides. All right. As you can see, Horizon Europe is one of their covers. The EU Research Innovation Program, 2021 till 2027. Many may know or may not know, but South Korea became one of the member country of Horizon Europe starting from 2025. We still got 2.5 good years to take part in the Horizon Europe program. It's one of the world's largest R&D fund of fund that started from the European Union. There are 3 pillars, as I remember, and pillar 2 would be one of the eligible courses that Koreans can become an applicant. And for the details, we can definitely ask with our panel today, later on, and also you can have a deep dive on Google to learn more about Horizon Europe. And starting from this, there is also, let's say Horizon Europe is the bigger funnel. Horizon Europe has much more broader concept of supporting research and innovation. We have EIC, which is the European Innovation Commission, and for their 2025, they have total budget of 1,294 million euro as their budget for the subsidy programs. And if you see, EIC Pathfinder, which is a fund for the visionary research with potential to lead technology breakthroughs. And then they also have a research results into innovation opportunities, which is EIC Transition, much more like commercializations and bringing these technologies to the real world. And also we have EIC Accelerator with one of the largest amount of budget allocated, develop and scale up innovation with the potential to create new markets. And also STEP, which was pretty interesting, is a additional equity funding to promising companies driving innovation in critical areas, which was claimed as semiconductors, chip industries, and also energy industry. Correct me if I'm wrong. However, even if you get to see the amount of budget they're trying to pull, they really have this strong, eager to bring innovation to European Union and European ecosystem, considering that Horizon Europe is another project that's much more broader, and EIC is much more sector-focused or specific purpose-focused. So this is how big it is and how eager they are to bring the innovation. And considering the other sub-partners of EU, Horizon Europe project, as I have mentioned, Korea is taking part as another member. UK is also taking part as another member. Canada is also taking part as a member. And there are ongoing discussions with the other countries to become the member of Horizon Europe program, although they're not European Union countries. So again, why? Why is EU taking such a strong drive? I believe many Koreans believe that Europe is a wealthy place. It's a wealthy country. They're rich. But in reality, it doesn't mean they have a strong purchasing power. That's what I strongly believe. They're not as strong Europe as before. They're having trouble with bringing in new innovation, building new business model, building new revenue streams to the countries. So I think that's one of the strong drives that bringing such one of the largest fund of fund in the world to the innovation ecosystem. So early this year, today's panel, Sanyu Karani, shared me a couple of reports with regards to the European ecosystem and their consideration in future. And the future of European competitiveness, definitely led by the Mario Draghi, was one of the most important and interesting report that I have read. Actually, it was quite controversial in South Korean ecosystem in the early this year as well, considering the long-term horizon of the capital markets, global capital markets. This was a pretty shocking report to many of Koreans because they believed that European market had a lot of strong confidence. But the reality was there were three areas for action to reignite growth in European Union. And number one was closing the innovation gap with U.S. and China. Actually, if you get to see one of the provocative fact that brought Donald Trump to become so aggressive about like reshoring all the technologies or manufacturing facilities back to U.S. One of them was that one of the Nature publishing papers on the global journals has been first time outran by China against U.S. So the innovation in China is definitely evolving in a fast speed, and U.S. is also trying their best to keep up the pace with the game. But also, meanwhile, we forgot that European Union was kind of behind these kind of innovations. But considering the centuries before that European Union was the leader of these such innovation, and considering that U.S. was paying a lot of money to bring these talents back into U.S. and make them American, I think that effort definitely worked, and that's one of the cause of these such problems. Number two, like joint plan for decarbonization and competitiveness. They were also worried about the technological or capacity dependency towards the Chinese technologies for such decarbonization facilities or infrastructures. And also number three was the increasing security and reducing dependencies. I think number three was definitely highlighted through the Ukrainian war, how strong the European Union was depending on the energy supply of Russia. And also definitely Germany had a huge economic dependency on the exports towards China after the all these sanctions starting to happen, and also while China was having tough time with their economic durability, it's definitely impacting the European ecosystem as well. So reducing dependencies and building up joint plan for decarbonization and competitiveness and closing the innovation gap were the three areas that was pointed out from this report. And the major fact that was also interesting was that U.S. is outspeeding the productivity part against Europe. And also geopolitical and financial pressures are given to Europe through U.S. As you can see, everyone's just looking at Donald Trump's lips, what's going to be his next word about the tariffs and his plan about the European ecosystem. And also global leadership in tech is slowly shifting away. Now, can't really say slowly, but now it's being kind of solidified on the current posture that U.S. is leading most of the global leaderships in tech. So on one side, as you can see, U.S. is trying to stretch out Europe. And on the other side, China is trying to stretch out Europe due to the cheaper alternatives, especially the components or infrastructural facilities, equipments, etc., and seductive outsourcing. I personally chose that word because definitely their prices are very seductive. Belt and Road Initiative marching towards EU. I think it is actually working right now. I will explain it later on the other page, but slowly, China is trying to acquire the major infrastructures or companies in the European Union, which can be represented by one of those ports that has been acquired by a Chinese company, or Volvo, or Mercedes, etc. So if we get to look at the comparison between U.S. and Europe, the vivid yellow line is the labor productivity per hour in U.S., and also the blue line is the labor productivity per hour in Euro area. EU companies are focused on mature technologies. I would say mature in a way could be also like second or third industrial technologies, quite a lot. And if we recall all the brands that we get to know in Europe, then it will definitely come up to your mind that many of those brands that come up to your mind are coming from like automotives or industrial technologies that has been triggered since like 1950s or 70s. So you'll be quite interested when you get to recognize the top 10 company comparison between US and Europe, that while many new companies has been brought up in US, yet in European Union, most of the companies are staying in the same mature markets. So that's one of the reason that productivity is lacking, because they have less room for breakouts because it's already too mature. And less spending on R&I against US, while the gap is strong against US with 270 billion euro, and also slow adoption of new technology. I recently had a chat with one of my friends who moved back in Germany, and I was asking him, how's your job over there? And he's like telling me that everything's good, but many things are bit outdated, especially the internal systems or productivity tools are not really applied yet. So he's trying to bring that on to the team, but he's having his own struggle trying to implicate that. So slow adoption of new technology, which was pretty interesting, and lacking motivation. This is my personal opinion, very personal opinion. But if I get to talk with some of the European friends of mine, they're lacking motivation. Although their check size that they receive per annum as their salary seems pretty big for a Korean, but actually the amount of tax that they're getting to pay is really not motivating. And also, even if you work longer hours or even if you work less hours, your salary gap is not that large. So many Europeans are pretty much less motivated, I personally believe. So these kind of productivity gap is being caused from multiple reasons, but as outlined over there. And also, EU imported goods from China. If you get to see the telecommunication equipments, automatic data processing machines, and electrical machineries, and apparatus, and electronic tubes, etc., etc. And if you get to see the EU most exported goods to China is other machineries, motor cars, and motor vehicles, motor vehicle parts, which is mostly included in the automotive industries. But if you move on to the next slide, the balance sheet between China and EU is like huge. So it's like a huge minus. They're already importing too much from China, which we can tell how massive this dependency is causing the problem. So they really do need to slowly get away from this such a strong dependency, because if you get to put all the eggs in one basket, there's always a problem. And also, Mercedes-Benz, if you get to see 9.98% of the shares of Mercedes, which is, I'm just trying to bring this up because it's most representing case and most renowned to people. It's owned by BAIC Group, and also it's owned 9.69% by the Li Shufu, which is called as a different fund name, Tenacio 3 Prospect Investment Limited, which approximately amounts up to 20% of the share of Mercedes. And if you go back to the slide where we were talking about the exported good to China, this is actually an internal transaction, because Mercedes-Benz exporting to China, China consumes the China-owned, 20% owned motor parts and motor vehicles. And we all know that Mercedes-Benz is not the only automotive company that has been partially acquired or fully acquired. Volvo, MG Motor is also the other case. So competition is getting harder to secure or attract talents, enterprise, while reshoring the others. The reason that I'm saying this is because even for the locals to produce a competing product, what comes from China is definitely cheaper. And some of these also, once Europe-owned companies are now being partially or fully owned by China, that most of their programs or innovation that's brought up by them can be also owned by China, or even the profits they get to build will go back to China. And even when they get to do the pricing competition against what's manufactured in China and what's manufactured in Europe, definitely China has a better hand in this game. So the competition to attract or secure these such talents to stay in this high-priced venture market will be getting even much more harder. Even to spend on the R&Ds, the runway will be much more shorter. So that's what I believe. Those are the factors that's driving such amount of investments toward the research and innovation market of European ecosystem ran by the European Commission. So how should Europe bounce back? I personally believe that this is the same problem that US is experiencing and also many other countries are experiencing. But I think Europe is having the most severe problem about this, which will be the European-made and consumed globally. I think that's what Horizon Europe or EIC is trying to pull, building a breakthrough technology that can be only consumed in the European ecosystem. To do so, we definitely have to have some flexibility on the regulatory sector and also high value-added technology focus, which Horizon Europe is already focusing on. Also, larger and unified singular markets, strengthening the sense of unification, as we already lost one of the European Union's major country, which is UK, long back. And to strengthen the sense of unification, we would need other members, new members, or I don't know, sub-memberships, such as like South Korea joining in the Horizon Europe project, is one of those leaps that we can make. And also taking advantage of reglobalizations that I think I introduced it last session, about 2 sessions before, that the global order is changing, the partnership maps are changing, allies are changing. So I think it's a pretty good moment where European Union can take advantage of this. And haven't wrote it over here, but at the end of the day, try to make some efforts to loose out the taxes on the employees and the companies. So now I want to dive deeper about these topics with the true expert who can discuss about this. Please welcome Sanyu Karani.
Thank you, Lisa, for having me here.
Yes, Sanyu. So please introduce us a bit about yourself so we can learn more about you.
I'm Sanyu Karani. I'm the co-founder of Funding Box. We're a relatively small company, a bit less than 100 people. I'm one of the 6 active partners in the company. So the people working in the company own the company. We are basically split up across 3 hubs in Europe: Poland, where we have our largest team; Spain, where we started; and Denmark, where we connect with the research and university communities. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this week the Economist cover story is Poland and the miracle reaching Japanese income resource levels. It's been a miracle and a wonder to work with our team in Poland and the ecosystem of partners in Poland. We are basically the largest operator of what the Commission calls financial support for third parties. Fortunately, we in the market call it simpler, cascade funding. The Commission realized, European Union, that works through European Commission, realized already 10 years ago that they needed to give money to the smaller organizations, small and medium companies and startups. And also smaller teams of solo researchers, not just the big departments of corporations and universities. So they came up with a formula to distribute smaller tickets of funding to smaller organizations. That's cascade funding. Anything up to €250,000 And we are currently with 139 million euros, 139 million under management. That means we've distributed a bit more than a third. Right now, distributing this year and next year around another third, and over a period of 4 years, the next third. So that's what Funding Box does.
Okay. So what are the major domains or sectors, industries that Funding Box focused on cascading these funds?
Yeah. We're basically an operator in deep tech, in the deep tech space, both research, innovation, startups, and scale-ups. But that's the continuum. And that basically applies to any vertical and in industry. To name a few, AI and robotics, digital twins, digital manufacturing, digital cities, smart cities, IoT, digital identities. There's a big push with the Euro and the Euro ID to have us be also digitalized in the identity space. It's not all about GDPR. That is actually being questioned right now. So there are some rumors that can be stopped. So Europe trying to break the US innovate, China imitate, Europe regulates. We want to try and break that bad reputation. So anything that relates to deep tech.
How about like, I don't know, bio or clean energy? Would that be also part of this?
Yes. This is about money from the taxpayer. So government invests where there's some sort of science progress. And the overlap of science and where business is going is today deep tech solutions, deep tech scale-up. So and that covers a very big spectrum. Not a lot of people know that the connection between the gravitational waves and the BioNTech COVID vaccine had one thing in common. That they were both funded by Horizon Europe funding. So that's fun fact. Anything in that spectrum.
I see. So for that case, as we have seen the Horizon Europe cover, why is it limited like from 2021 to 2027?
So it's actually, you said one of the largest, it is the largest research program in the world. You could say because the US and China don't disclose all the money that they support, but formally it is the largest standalone research program in the world. And it's actually pretty old. This is the 9th edition, and every edition is up to 7 years. So we start in the 40th year of history of Horizon Europe. So it is the largest. It is standing for long. When it gets approved for what the Commission calls, the European Union Commission calls the multi-financial framework. That's normally over 7 years. But the priorities get published and repurposed every year. And every 3.5 years, they stop, they review everything, they do an interim report and decide if major changes are needed. It's still not enough because in the AI era that we are living now, agents of today can be whatever of tomorrow. So that's still, we need to get faster. It's trying to get faster. And specifically the Cascade funding periods are shorter. So they get delivered in 12 weeks, not in 12 months. So in 12 weeks, you can pivot easier than in 12 months on what you want to fund across different open calls.
So what would be the most largest underlying purpose of Horizon Europe? Like, would it be just to bring up the innovation in the European ecosystem, or would there be another factors behind it?
In Europe, you address, I like your introduction in how you addressed it from the geopolitical perspective. In Europe, we have a problem, a big problem. We outsource manufacturing to China. We outsource defense to NATO. We outsource innovation to the American tech companies. We outsource pharma to the Swiss companies. We have a problem. What we didn't outsource was the R&D. Horizon Europe still has one of the best research universities,
for sure,
research organizations, and research-led companies. We're not so good in bringing them
the commercialization
at the startup agility.
Okay.
So that's what we're lacking: the entrepreneurial spirit that the U.S. and the Chinese have shown. Historically, the U.S. and very recently, China. So that's what's been mainly changed. You mentioned the Draghi report. The Draghi report came along with two more reports, Letta report and Haito report. They call it the triple EU helix. Draghi report you already refers to. We need to connect innovation with competitiveness, industrial policy. When I went to university in Spain, they used to say the industrial policy from a government is the one that doesn't exist. Hopefully that is changing. We need industrial policy linked to R&D and innovation. That's the Draghi report. Letta is saying we need the fifth innovation. In Europe, we have 4 innovations: product, services, capital, and people. Letta is proposing that there is a fifth in freedom, which is innovation. Innovation should travel freely. That means people and talent and innovation and startups should be really traveling freely across the 27th member states. And since that is difficult, they're creating what they call the 28th regime, a virtual member state where startups registering there can automatically work in the digital as a true digital single market. There is an initiative called the EU Inc. To actually have the same deed. All startups get created through the same template. We, Funding Box, are developing the European equivalent of the Smart Agreement for Future Equity, the SAFE that Y Combinator popularized. We're developing a version of that for deep tech scale-ups in Europe that will connect with the EU Inc. and align with the 20th regime. We're slowly waking up through all this mess that Europe is in.
So that's like one of the largest singular market idea.
I think is the most differential one. It's not necessarily the one backed with the most amount of funds. Startups and scale-ups are eating up more and more every year, but the amount of cascade funding for startups and small SMEs is still a bit more than $500 million a year. Well, the total amount of Horizon Europe per year is close to 12 billion. So it's 95.5 over a 17-year period. So still a lot to catch up. And you mentioned EIC before. Not a lot of people know that the European Innovation Council is a 10 billion deep tech fund. It's the largest deep tech investor in the world.
So that's also periodical?
No, that's the total amount that they have.
Wow.
They will aim to have more, and they're actually trying to crowd in private investors. So if you raise a relevant amount from EIC, that's a message to the big venture capital funds in Europe that they should be putting another 2/3 of what the EIC put, more or less.
So like if EIC take part as an investor, as a shareholder, are they like activist shareholders, or are they just they're just there?
They're attractor shareholders. So they'll be labeling and signaling this is a deep tech European startup.
Promote.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but they won't necessarily play an active, they will play then a neutral role in the board. They will make sure, first, they'll be paying attention to all the ethical elements that and the values that in Europe we very proudly still defend in this new geopolitical situation.
Interesting. Okay. So so is it correct that Horizon Europe is the bigger and broader funnel, and EIC is much more like purpose focused?
EIC is actually not Pillar 2, where Korea is starting. So Korean startups could get funding through other grants of Pillar 2, and if they decide to incorporate in one of the European Union countries, then they can apply for EIC investment. They also have a blended part with a mix of grants and investments. That goes up to 2.5 million euros. So it's a relevant amount. Okay. So EIC is on one side. The Commission follows across the pillars also a cluster. There's 6 clusters. And I would say the topic that gets more, there's no one such topic that gets more. Of course, there are statistics, but I would say the cross point of anything related to digitalization, sustainability, climate change is what is getting the more traction. And then that can be approached from any of the verticals.
Okay.
pharma, industry, construction. There's a new Bauhaus initiative. So any topic that you could actually, the last set of projects that we've been part of are in the cultural heritage. So how you take the whole vast cultural assets sleeping in museums and you digitalize it and make them accessible with virtual reality, augmented reality, and new business models or participatory models through the citizenship. Any topic that you can imagine.
Interesting. So, as we speak about Pillar 2 and Horizon Europe and EIC, how also Korean companies can apply for, since this video will be like reused and utilized by many Korean founders as well, how can Korean startups or founders, not the research institutions, since they are well informed already, how can Korean startups apply? What kind of Korean startups should be applying for it? What are the tips and what are the facility tools from the funding box? How can we reach out to you?
Well, what I realized in these 2 years in Seoul is that Korean startups are very good at dealing with their own government. And their government and their agencies are pretty advanced. There's a certificate, if you're a startup, that you can get so that every venture capital knows. So it's a credential that you're really a venture-ready startup or a startup that can become venture-ready. There's the TIPS initiative where if you're able to raise 100,000 from Accelerator, you can get up to $1 million.
By a matching fund.
From the TIPS. I found out also today that there's also a LIPS or something similar to TIPS. It's new to me. If taking that aside, what I've learned is that Korean startups are very good at raising public money from the government. The criticism on the other side is they're too good. So I know you guys use here the term zombie startup for those who go from, but they're good at that. I would say any Korean startup that knows how to deal with their own government to raise the funding they need in their pre-traction stage before then they can go to the institutional support venture market will be the same level of opportunities that any European startups in winning smaller tickets through operators like us, through our open calls that we manage on behalf of the European Commission. So the challenges for the for the Korean startups are their own natural challenges that they have for the globalization of the business. Think beyond Korea and don't be ashamed about your English. You are very good when you dare to speak it. So just speak the English and go to the meetings and apply for the funding. You'll be most likely among the top performers because Korean research is leading in the world, and startups here, in their innovation capacity, I would say, are also leading.
So what's much more prioritized in Horizon Europe, such as you said many European innovation is struggling to be commercialized. Is it the possibility of commercialization, or is it the possibility of innovation? Because there are there are different types.
Okay. So startups specifically always need to be raising, always need to be, while they convince the market and the clients to buy the products and services, they need to convince governments that the deep tech solution is worth taxpayers' money and investors, that they're going to provide the upside. Okay. So I think they should really focus on doing that, and they should focus. But not only for that. To my surprise, 2 of the last 3 startups that I spoke with last week said, the funding is good, but we really need to use this to go to Amsterdam and win our first AI client. So I think the Korean startups that have the challenge about not getting too comfy in a relatively large digitalized market and that need to try and go global, via Japan, via China, via Europe, are now slowly taking also Amsterdam, but why not Paris, number 4, as per the recent startup hub in the world, finally making it to the top 5 among the US ones, are alternatives for Korean startups that actually want to go global. So it's not only about the need for funding for innovation, is clearly about the global discovery, market discovery, global potential for their businesses.
What's the most desperate sector that is being sought by the European Commission to develop or attract to European Union? Because like energy sector definitely, and defense sector seems to be uprising. So would those two sectors be the like one of those priority focus by the European Commission?
Yeah. If you add the health one to the two that you've mentioned, energy and defense, then we come to the triage of
why health?
Because this connects with the topic that I want to bring now. This new addition of industrial policy next to R&D and innovation, it's being framed by the Commission as connected to also the mess we're in of having outsourced everything to what Europe is calling strategic autonomy. And to be, and of course it's the European way, so we call it open strategic autonomy, which means alone when possible, together when necessary. And the Ukraine war has helped us. When I came here 3 years ago, the Garrison had a bit less than 300. Now you are on 1,000 plus. But you and I commented, Sanju, nobody speaks here about Horizon Europe. Nobody speaks here about Ukraine. Now everybody's speaking here. The business community, science community, speaking about Horizon Europe, and Ukraine is now a topic. Or at least it's more a topic than it was. You've mentioned it a couple of times. So defense is clearly one. And von der Leyen, our president of the European Commission, has said we bought vaccines together, then we had to buy gas together, and now we are buying ammunition together. We need to buy ammunition together. So there you have it. The 3 elements, the vaccines, the gas, energy, and the ammunition, defense. That's strategic autonomy. And for our own strategic autonomy, when we don't go alone and we go together, we want to go together with us that help us compete with US and in China, and that is South Korea.
How about Japan?
Japan is coming next. So exploratory formal talks, exploratory talks for Japan to join Horizon finish. Formal talks are happening. I'm assuming this fall we have some news that Japan will join next year. Fingers crossed.
How about Singapore?
Funny enough, Singapore was not on the short list. Now it is to be invited to join Horizon Europe. So, and don't lose India out of sight. They're doing their thing. The world is multipolar. It doesn't need to be US or China or Europe. We are India. But the European Union has already started approach India. Why don't you also think about joining?
So that's becoming like massive umbrella under European Union.
We are in a big mess. We need to react.
I see. So
we need new alliances. You said it also in your intro.
So what happens after 2027 then? Like once the Horizon Europe 2021 to 2027 ends, would you guys be like reviewing and setting up the new scopes, and we have to sign up new membership? Is that how it's going to work?
There is a heated debate right now because following the Draghi, Letta, and Heiter reports, and following the European Commission started the consideration of creating a new fund called the European Competitiveness Fund. Until a week ago, there were rumors that the next Horizon Europe will be part of that European Competitiveness Fund. Our president said, no, it's going to still be a standalone program. It is written in the treaty of the European Union that research will be a huge priority and will be, you could deduct from the wording, a standalone program. So there will be a new Horizon Europe, most likely. Why not keep the name? Branding is working. It will be the 10th framework program. It will be, again, for 7 years, it will be more than 95.5 billion, so most likely.
So it's getting even bigger.
Yeah, it's probably getting above the 100 billion, but please don't forget the UK left the European Union, but they came back to Horizon.
Okay.
UK Horizon has no Brexit.
Okay.
We have UK fully in Horizon Europe. So we didn't lose that part, not even in the back. It stayed in the fourth. And moving forward, the Parliament has requested a budget of, European Parliament has requested a budget of 220 billion. They always do that. They ask for double the money, so they get at least 10 or 20% more.
Okay.
You know how this works.
Okay.
So it will be more connected to competitiveness. It will be responding to the Draghi, Letta, and Heiter report. It will respond to the strategic autonomy challenges. It might well be the first research program that actually allows for defense.
Okay, that's big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so far, only civil use is considered. There's a defense separate initiative, not part of the Horizon Europe budget, but it wouldn't surprise me that in the next framework program, the next edition of Horizon, defense is also. That's why, long answer, that's why defense, health, and energy are the three key parts.
Okay, let's dig in a bit deeper to the defense sector, because like one of the new uprising hope in the Korean economy is that the growth of defense sector globally, so that like U.S. is trying to outsource their military maritime projects to South Korea, and European Union is importing our tanks, and also they're taking in our drones as well, like quite seriously. So like, what's the whole purpose of pouring in such much of innovation funds into the defense sector? Is it to manufacture defense products in European Union, or is it to develop much more efficient technology to, have our own capacity to protect European Union itself?
I think it was Naval Ravikant, the angel list guru, that said that in the future every war will be a drone war.
Yeah.
And the leading country in drones now is Ukraine, because they have a living lab.
Oh yeah, true.
They have.
True.
There are more than 500 teams of 1 or 2 or 3 more people developing drones in the garage.
Whoa.
They are, a big part of them, connected to soldiers and to small groups that are autonomous in choosing their drones. Mikhailo Fedorov, the Ministry of Digital Transformation, the pet boy of Mr. Zelensky, that is the minds behind that. He's developed a whole initiative called Brave One, and where all these drone teams get the support from the country. And specifically funds are fueled into those teams for them to develop. And I've seen them with my eyes. I've touched the drones in any event that you go in Kyiv, been there 5 times the last 2 years. You get to hold one drone that is being used in the war. So they are very proud about what they're developing. They're in every science. I went to In Science. It's an event for science that on the weekends does a small kid editions. The kids that are very aware about the war that is going get to see the founders that are developing drones. They are the role models.
Oh, okay.
STEM students, engineers that left university have gone with other colleagues and are building these drones, giving it to the soldiers. The soldiers are giving them real life information on what worked, what didn't work. They work overnight. They fine tune the drone. They give it again, overhaul. It's like Formula One with the engineers working overnight during the weekend to see how they win 2 tenths of a second to be better in the qualifying. That's how the Ukrainians are iterating overnight in the drone strategy, in the drone industry. And I think a bit of that resilience, or a lot of that Ukrainian resilience, I can see here in the pali from the Koreans.
Yeah.
It's not about your innovation level, it's about your capacity to manufacture it very quick, very fast. Shoot first, ask then.
Yeah.
I think that's going to give Korean startups or Korean defense industry a big edge. Yeah.
What are the lessons that I don't know. I don't want to say European Union, but like I don't know how to put it though. Like Horizon Europe learned from this Ukrainian war and also this geopolitical reshaping and all these conflicts happening everywhere and all these downslopes. Like definitely the shortage in energy was one of the thing, and I believe like the investment in the research and innovation of defense sector is one of many. What are the other major lessons that people outside Europe may not recognize, but that is like super real?
There is a debate if the European Union doesn't have defense competences. It's not. But we do have defense industry competences. So we cannot have an army, but we can build for that army. Okay? So, and as I told you, there's a consideration that defense will be part of the Horizon, next edition of Horizon Europe. So one of the things people don't know is that Europe doesn't have an army. We didn't really have a strong foreign affairs ministry. Now we've got a Spaniard one, Josep Borrell, that did that, and the Estonian one that is very close to Ukraine. I don't think it's a coincidence that the one playing, the High Commissioner playing the role of foreign affairs in the name of European Union is an Estonian, because they're very close and they live. Estonia together with Denmark are the countries that are giving more support to Ukraine in terms of their GDP. So it's not a coincidence. So that's what Ukraine has woken up inside the citizenship and our politicians. The need to be able to be strategically autonomy means to be able to defend our borders, which is the same than defending our values. Yeah. So that's basically how the Ukrainians are showing. They're fighting a war. They're fighting a war for us by proxy.
Yeah. So.
And they're bringing the latest innovation in the drones that will be the next way. The next way wars will be fight. I think we need to look a lot into what is happening in Ukraine, and I hope they join the European Union sooner than 2030, which is the current. I'm pretty sure that will happen.
Okay. Then what's the most interesting startup ecosystem that's coming up with strong potential? Because like, if you get to see the amount of unicorns in Europe, it's usually number one UK, number two Germany or Paris, right? So even for Koreans, if we talk about startup ecosystem in Europe, they're like, oh yeah, we have VivaTech, and they know like South Summit, MWC. That's like pretty much it. Yeah. And like they say, oh, we're going to go to the European ecosystem, and like, oh yeah, sure, where are you heading to? They're like mostly say, France. It's like, okay, that's France, not European Union as a whole. So what's the uprising ecosystem? Like Poland, I don't know, Netherlands is uprising these days. Like, what's going on over there?
Yeah. So when I get contacted about giving some support in a delegation of Korean startups or organizations that are going to Europe, the names that come up are Paris, Berlin, London, sometimes Amsterdam. Poland, that I was flagging before, doesn't get quoted, and the stock market there is now more relevant for the whole Central Eastern Europe than Vienna that used to be. So Poland is clearly the gateway, not only for the Polish market or the German market in the borders, but the leading country in Central Eastern Europe. So I would say Poland is one that is not so overseen, but not many people know that the second largest market to NASDAQ after the US is Sweden. Sweden is the most advanced country in the world as the literacy of the citizenship in how much they invest in entrepreneurs that then go to the stock market. So their secondary market, the First North from Nasdaq, is super dynamic, and is for me the best interesting option, because in Sweden you basically work in English, so you can have a truly international company from day one, and if you get some traction, you can go public in the secondary market, and go to Bloomberg, Google Bloomberg, Sweden and Nasdaq, and you will see the Nasdaq people saying, we love Sweden, we love going to Stockholm, it's our most dynamic market. So what the LETA report also said is that we needed a digital financial market. We have many stock markets, we don't have one.
Yeah.
The London-Frankfurt merge failed. So while we achieve a strong, unified financial market, I think you should look into Sweden. The talent there is enormous. You mentioned Polestar that the Chinese bought. That was the Volvo electrical bet. Okay, the Northvolt experiment didn't work well, but they took the risk. So they tried to do it. They tried to do it staying by the European values, and the Nordics are very advanced part of Europe in what respects to the entrepreneurship approach, their community sense, and in the case of Sweden, the dynamism of their market, the financial markets, and how regular citizens will buy 10,000 stocks of startups and discuss that with the banks. And the banks have special courses to keep the clients aware on what are the opportunities, not just the Wallenbergs and the big corporations, but startups. It's a very big focus.
So does that factor kind of attract a lot of other European startups to relocate in Stockholm?
I think the Nordic startups are very aware about that. So if you're in Denmark, you might well consider that where you incorporate and where you go public, and that's happening outside of Denmark. Outside of the Nordics or the Baltics that look up for the Nordics. We mentioned Estonia before. It's not so obvious that you will go all the way there, but I think if London or Paris or the other European Frankfurt markets don't wake up, particularly Frankfurt one, what would a startup in Hamburg that is doing well go to Frankfurt instead of doing it in Stockholm? It's not so far.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before the digitalization and challenges of Germany. I think they're going to come back. Like the Prime Minister said, Germany will be back. But why not Stockholm? It's a great alternative.
Interesting. So if we kind of dissect it into areas, then I think one of the good secondary market is Stockholm.
Yeah.
One of the good financial ecosystem would be Germany. Then we have a pretty strong incubation sector, and I just my personal belief or personal experience, maybe I'm the victim of propaganda, but a lot of open innovation and POC happening in France, and a lot of incubation happening in France. What about the other countries? What are their comparative edge? Like Luxembourg, fintech, Dutch also has a bit of a neck in fintech, Spain, other countries. What are their clusters?
So I think one other country that I will profile is Denmark. Denmark was the first country more than 14 years ago to put their first 100 million Danish krona to sea through a state fund of funds for startups. They're sitting today in more than 100 billion kronas, and they're investing everywhere in the world. So they cannot distribute the monies that they want to reinvest with Danish startup only. They started long ago supporting other Nordic startups. And what I think where the connection between universities, VCs, and government agencies is stronger, and they have a stronger sense of community that I've seen in Europe. Yes, you're right. Mr. Macron gave a big push in the whole AI, and it's not a coincidence Mistral is there. or if Paris is racing in the rankings. But if you take apart large country among the less big countries, the best integrated ecosystem that I see on acceleration, incubation, universities, research, and clusters is Denmark. Denmark had 30 plus clusters, decided to reduce them to 12. I think 13 maybe now. They have 13 clusters, and the Ministry of Science in the morning can call all 13 and say, we're pushing this, and they will meet, and in 2 weeks they've implemented it and passed the law. So it's a very dynamic country in that sense, and I think, their corporations are also, all corporations are run not by the quarter alerts from the stock markets. They're run by private foundations that have 10 years budget. Novo Nordisk has approved a 10-year budget for the foundations, their support. A 10 years budget. Imagine you are the CEO of a foundation that depends on funding of Novo, and you can make a 10 years plan. Think about that. I wouldn't call it Chinese, thinking on terms of civilizations, but clearly in terms of the whole generation, that's what's happening in Denmark.
Interesting. So the private funds are also funding foundations. Those are trying to drive innovation.
Yes. The private foundations don't only have the proceedings or the earnings of whatever the family and the shareholders of the corporation have. They actually are the ones calling the shot in the board of the corporations. So private foundations in a country like Denmark speak eye to eye to the holder of the budget of research in the country. In the case of Novo Nordisk, a bit too much, because they're so big now that they need to reinvest all the tax benefits that the foundations have into giving back, and they do. And they do align with the clusters, and they do it align with the research and the politicians, and they sit together and they agree.
Interesting. So, as we have about 3 minutes left, I want to wrap it up with introducing the advantage of Horizon Europe, and also the strategies, or like hows and who's and what's. So we haven't really dived into the one pass good enough. We would love to learn about that as well. But also, yes, we understand Horizon Europe is good. Where should we start from? Should we look for our office in Stockholm first, or Spain in first? Just can you brief us?
I don't think they need to start relocating. Korean startups can stay where they are till they have a good reason to do that. And that reason should not be because I want to win that funding. Is because I want to win that market. I want to go global.
Exactly.
You're right. In OnePass, get1pass.eu, you can both profile your startup, and you will be able to win free equity-free funding from governments till you win some traction. And when you have some traction,
even you're ready, Korean.
Even if you're Korean, this is particularly since 2025. There might be some programs that were given before 2025. Then it's not possible, but those of us that are managing funds given from 2025 onwards, and you're a startup in Korea, you can apply to that cascade funding like a startup in Paris. Okay. And then once you are ready for the investors, you can also engage with, now we have 27 investors, including the waitlist, that are profiled in our Get One Pass. So they will be able to see what have you done. There's some credentials that we issue on, is your technology deep tech? Are you a startup? Are you really
like kind of screening process?
Like a KYC. Okay, but for funding purposes. That's get1pass.eu. So that's the obvious recommendation. Get there, create a profile, and try and multi-apply to all the cascade funding opportunities. And once you're ready to speak with investors, you can start talking to the 27 that are on our
How about forming the consortia and stuff? Because many Horizon
I wouldn't recommend startups to join a consortia. I would tell startups to knock to the accelerators, and the accelerators, the VC funds, the Koreans Accelerators Association and Venture and Angel Investor Associations, they should be partner to make sure that the Korean startups get hurt also in the European ecosystem. That would be.
Okay. So
Get the Garrison also to do some
Sure.
community initiatives like you normally do to make Korean and foreign entrepreneurs in Korea aware of these opportunities.
so onepass.eu.
Get1pass.eu.
Get onepass.eu. Remember that, and we make an account. We go in there, check out the information about the Horizon Europe projects, select an accelerator,
Yes.
consult with them, and they can also get you on the partnerships
Yes.
or
Yes.
investment strategies. Okay.
That's the call to action. Get1pass.eu.
All right. Well, thank you, Sanyu. Like, that was very productive and quick 1 hour. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening up for an hour long session. We were very pleasured to learn about the European ecosystem. I hope I can bring up another big panels to discuss even deeper about Horizon Europe benefits. If you really want to learn more about Horizon Europe ecosystem and how to apply, go to get1pass.eu or knock on Sanyu's LinkedIn. He's very open. Thank you so much. See you next time. We'll see you on next Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, Rizzo.
Thank you.